Yes, and for more on the Daniel Penny trial, let's bring in attorney Andrew Stoltmann. Andrew, thanks for giving us a little time this Saturday. Let's start with the latest headline. The defense has rested. Penny chose not to testify in this trial. I'm sure a lot of people are very curious about his mindset at the time of the crime, but do you think the defense made the right decision on this?
No, I think they made a mistake, but I think I know why they made the mistake, because introduced at the trial was a videotape of him speaking to the police officers immediately after he was arrested, where he gave his version of what transpired. But I still think it was a mistake. These jurors are sitting there and they always want to hear from the defendant. They want to hear what his mindset is. I personally would have had him testify.
Yeah, well, one other thing, the closing arguments are put off until after the holiday. Could that have an impact? Or could it potentially be a good thing? The jurors have some time over this next week to think about things before the closing arguments.
You know, Molly, this is such a frivolous case. Only in New York City could a case like this be brought, right? It's frivolous. So I think in this sort of case where you have the jurors who can sit back and truly think about what transpired, think about the evidence, think about how you had a drugged up individual on this train who had a lethal amount of drugs in his system, somebody who's been arrested 42 times between 2014 and 2021. Give them an opportunity to sit back and really digest. And if there is anything other than a not guilty verdict for Mr. Penny, that is a massive miscarriage of justice.
You know, one of the last things the juries heard was a forensic pathologist that had been called by the defense that talked about a cocktail of drugs, his potential medical conditions, that was the combination that ultimately led to his death, not the asphyxiation. What the medical examiner has testified that that's what they believed happened, that Penny is responsible in this death. Those dueling experts, so to say, how does the jury manage that testimony?
I think what this jury is likely to do is they're going to dismiss the testimony from both of the experts in this case, and they're going to put their common sense hat on. They're going to put themselves in that subway cart and say to themselves, if I was sitting in that subway, or my daughter or my son was sitting in that subway, would I want someone like Daniel Penny to come forward and to do what he did to keep it safe? And I think the answer to that question is a resounding yes. And I think ultimately Alvin Bragg is going to have to answer for these frivolous charges. I think most New Yorkers are saying, I want 50 Daniel Pennys on that train if me or my kids are sitting in one of those trains.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the result of this could mean for Alvin Bragg down the road. Shifting gears quite substantially, actually, the Illinois Supreme Court has overturned this verdict out in Illinois regarding Jussie Smollett in the case, the charges. Your thoughts on this? This has been such a strange case from the very beginning, and they're arguing that he shouldn't have been charged a second time after he had an initial deal. Your thoughts on what the Supreme Court has done there in Illinois?
Well, Mr. Smollett is luckier than the lobsters on the Titanic. I think the overall impression I get from this is it was a waste of time, it was a waste of resources, it was a waste of everything. And it's all Jussie Smollett's fault, right? Legally, I understand the decision. The Supreme Court said because you have already been charged and you agreed to a plea and you took a step in furtherance of that plea, you can't be charged again. So I get it. But in the same sense, what the Illinois Supreme Court did not do is they did not look at the merits of the case, because everybody who saw the testimony, who heard the major facts of the case, agree that he's guilty. So Mr. Smollett is taking a victory lap. Mr. Smollett is saying that, gee, I think I should get an apology from the city of Chicago and the prosecutors. Well, that's not going to happen. He got lucky, but he's still guilty.
Yeah, he had this initial kind of sweetheart deal. He didn't have to admit guilt. The Cooks County State Attorney, he had to forfeit $10,000 bond, do some community service, but then this went forward. And that's essentially what the Supreme Court said, that the first deal should have stuck. Smollett still maintains his innocence. Meanwhile, there are these two brothers involved in this, and they believe this is very unfair to them. Do we have that sound? The brothers who are, yeah, take a listen, and then I want to try to get your reaction.
We were taken aback initially, not because of the Supreme Court's decision, but because Jussie never admitted guilt. We understand that he has due process rights and double jeopardy shouldn't and is not allowed in America. However, Jussie should have admitted guilt, and that's where we stand.
So the real injustice here was the sweetheart deal he was given by Kim Foxx's office at the beginning of all of this.
And, and they feel that this is unfair to a certain extent. Your thoughts?
Well, it is, but the second brother brought it up best. The biggest problem is Kim Foxx in this entire case. She gave a sweetheart deal to someone who didn't deserve a sweetheart deal because she got pressure from individuals to do so. Thank God she decided not to run for Cook County prosecutor again because she would have lost. But ultimately, I think the true egg is on Kim Foxx's face. And she's sitting here, she wants an apology too. She's taken her victory lap, but it's been an unmitigated disaster. Thank God she's gone. Thank God Chicago's going to get a real Cook's assistant attorney taking control of this office.
Andrew Stoltmann, thank you very much for weighing in on an interesting ending to a case that has been strange from the very beginning. Greatly appreciate your thoughts today. Greg?
Anytime. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.